Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark DJ Solitaire here with episode 158 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I share in each episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. So we're currently exploring tracks that by and large were released sometime from the autumn of 98 through to the end of the summer 99, or produced at that time, or that I got my hands on during that time. And this one has a little bit of a little stretch on either side of those parameters because I know that it was premiered in the summer of 98 and only released in early 2000. And when I got my hands on it, might have been late 99, might have been early 2000, but I know that I first played it out in sometime early spring in 2000. And it made quite an impact on its premiere in 98, and it certainly made an impact when I played it out. And it just came up in conversation recently. The premiere did, so I figured I might as well feature this one. It's been a little while since I've had this artist on here, and it's a legendary one, and it's a pretty iconic track. So, um, you'll recall, or you'll go back and find the videos, and then you'll hear that, I was not immediately enamored with Delta when I first heard as a child. And then, of course, I came to love it. And then I was massively searching for traveling at the speed of thought after I heard Steph play it in Osaka in November of 97. And he had just showed me the DAT that just said Delta. And I was like, what's this Delta track? And I remember later in 98, at some point, I met up with Mark Allen. I think it was possibly Return to the Source Party in Japan. That was probably it. Not the one at Mount Fuji that I've talked about, but there were a couple of later ones that were done with Rainbow 2000, aka Raincoat 2000, because again, I do remember this particular one being a rainy occasion, as they all were. And I remember him saying, "Oh, Spiral Kinder opened up the VU Festival with this unbelievable Delta track. You'd love it. It started off, it was like operatic and had this chorus, and it just, it was all this noise and the slow, long introduction, and then the place just exploded." Because I remember Mark had remembered I was asking him about this Delta track when I was looking for Traveling at the Speed of Thought. He thought I meant the Stranded remix. I was like, no, 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 there's another one. So he remembered that, told me the story. And then I got the CD. Again, might have been prior to release, might have been just after, in the mail, after I'd moved to Vancouver. Yeah, I'd moved in October 99 after a little bit of time in Europe in the summer. And I remember, of course, I was like, oh my God, Delta album, right? Now, there's a range of styles because they were starting to shift directions here. But I was like, oh, I hope that orchestral track is on there. And sure enough, it is. So I recognized right away what this was. And I remember it might have been my first set in Vancouver after moving here. It might have been, maybe it was the second one. So whenever that was, I remember it was in the spring. I just remember because of who was there and when I met them and so on. It's, all these associations. And when I put it on, uh, every DJ in the club. And in Vancouver, we tend to have a high percentage of DJ relative to the dancers. So everybody would show up at the gigs back then. And everyone was coming up to me saying, what is this track? And I mean, it made quite an impression. And rightly so. I mean, it is pretty full power. There was nothing like it at the time that had this level of actual operatic sonority to it, even though, as I'll explain, it's not from an opera. It is from another choral work. I've got a sample for us to check out afterwards, but we're going to listen to the track first. But in any case, I just remember being completely enamored with it, even though it's got like a lot of darker stuff. It goes in a lot of different directions. So, this is the brilliant thing with a lot of artists is they're able to do different styles. And so, you're going to hear shards of as a child, but it's different. It's also a little bit of, oh, is there something from traveling? But it's really different. So this gets really dark and gritty and gnarly and quite eerie. So buckle up. There's some really cool stuff coming up over here. We are going to listen to By the Delta Thing. Okay, so timpani, that's the big kettle drums, and then this orchestral introduction. I mean, imagine opening a whole festival like with this sound. Okay, so that sounds more, that is not operatic. That sounds more like from Psycho or some kind of scary movie. I'm not sure where this is taken from. As well as that weird scraping. Like these cries. Very dramatic, right? Now this is coming from the 4A Requiem. Which we'll hear later. What truly beautiful piece of music, but it's church music. Then that's from something else or inspired by it. And that's pizzicato, is when they pluck the strings on stringed instruments. Very eerie effect. And then notice there's that the drum. So timpani is the kettle drum, those really, really big ones, the back of the orchestra. And then there's the bass line. There's the kick. Beautiful voice. Super smooth, this kick that's in there. Very cool note progressions here with that brass sound from the 4A. 4A is the French composer who wrote it. All right, so far it's quite subdued, and that'll change. Okay, so talk about that crisp, biting percussion on that upper level, and then that full power kick. Wow. All kinds of eerie sounds coming in with it. There's a interesting climb going on in the background. And with that voice. Very Twilight Zone. All kinds of ghoulish cries, as this is getting pretty dark here, yeah? cool upper elements that are in there now. Notice the rhythm there. Right, so pretty minimal, other than those orchestral interjections. Right, so pretty techno, pretty grungy. And this was a sound that was, there's starting to be a little bit more of this around this time. Listen to the beauty. You really have yin and yang. Ooh, and then this chord, this progression. Ooh, notice that. Ooh, different note. Really beautiful. And then that again. Long dramatic breaks, huh? Just imagine this outdoors. This is really what this music is made for. Or, actually, giant stadium. That giant stadium outdoors would be something too. Oh. This is really like, I don't know, this energy leading into some cosmic birth or rebirth. This is really intense. That climb. It's interesting the way all those sounds blend into that. Very cool rhythmic bit here. New sound. So right now, these two notes, this is unresolved, right? So it's waiting for something to happen. Whoa. Sounds like a voice backwards. Very David Lynch, Twin Peaks kind of thing. Ooh, some extra impulse added with that sound. Some more scraping going on. Interesting harmonic stuff going on in the background that's getting louder and louder. This sounds like it's, something really angelic coming out of all this darkness. And we're back to that opening bit from the Fauré Requiem. And you're just lost in this hypnotic loop here. And there's that kettle drum that sort of breaks the kick. All kinds of very trippy noises. I mean, that is just, again, it's a whole other kind of piece, isn't it? So as I was saying, this was coming at a time when there was starting to become, there's starting to be a lot more dark and minimal stuff that was working its way into sets. And I think it all has a place when it's well incorporated and when it's well balanced. The issue that I was starting to see is, dark is magnetic. And people would just, play dark and then more dark and more and more. And there wasn't a sense of, as the tracks, not this one, but other tracks started being composed, there started being less of an integration and a balance of light and dark. And then DJs as well were just sort of sticking to one flavor. And so we were getting a lot of just, some of those minimal techno-like elements that we heard in this set that weren't complemented and balanced by some of the other elements that provide more light and provide more lyricism and so on. And so, it was a bit of an interesting and kind of tricky time in terms of how things were starting to move. But of course, I mean, this 98, right? So this was actually done in 98 and was released about a year and a half later, right? So it would have been fresh, probably off the press when Spiralkinder, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it in English or German, Spiralkinder, played it in, at the legendary VOO Festival in the summer of 98. But it was confirmed for me that it was 98 and not 99 when it was played. And, I know for sure this album was released. I was back in Vancouver when this was coming out. So that was, late 99, early 2000. And the official release date, release month is showing as January 2000 on Discogs. I just wanted to play a quick little bit from the operatic sort of one of the samples. And as I said, it's not operatic, it's church music. So it's a requiem, which is a series of pieces for the dead that would be played in a church. A lot of composers wrote requiems. Mozart wrote one, Brahms wrote one, and Fauré, a 19th into the 20th century French composer, wrote exquisitely beautiful music. He wrote one. And we're going to hear a little bit from the opening where you might recognize some of the sounds that we heard in there. Right? So that particular combination of notes with the brass, and then this particular choral sample. Okay, so the progression of notes is different, right? So they did some stuff when they were sampling and using other orchestral samples, and so you don't hear the full, progression of chords that Fauré incorporated. It can recognize the opening, can recognize the voices, and some of those other samples that were then adjusted and mixed in with others. So anyway, it struck me right away because, of course, being a classical geek, I know the Fauré Requiem, great piece of music. And certainly great piece of music, this thing, isn't it? Uh, Again, very different, really cutting edge. And certainly when you think of, how fast the music was progressing, the fact that this really came to the public in early 2000, but had already been produced in the middle of 98, right? Which is really just when Traveling at the Speed of Thought was coming public, although it had been available some months before to those who had it. Uh, it's pretty astounding what cutting edge stuff. Of course, we're used to that from some of these great musicians. And so there we are. So I am going to sign off and let you listen to the entire magical, weird, twisted, bizarre track that we just heard together. I am Mark, DJ Solitaire, wrapping up episode 158 and leaving you now with the truly cutting edge masterpiece by the Delta Thing.